for launch. FTS.
FTS go.
Props go. AVI.
AVI's go.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to SpaceX's live coverage of the BlueBird 8 to 10 mission for our customer AST SpaceMobile. SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket is currently awaiting liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, with launch scheduled for 2:39 a.m. Eastern. Hello everyone, my name is Tyler Lionquist and I'm a Starlink business analyst here at SpaceX, and thank you for joining us. Today we are delivering 3 satellites to low Earth orbit: BlueBird 8, 9, and 10. SpaceX previously launched AST SpaceMobile's first 5 commercial satellites, BlueBird 1 to 5, in September of 2024. We're just about halfway through 2026, and this will be SpaceX's 71st Falcon launch of the year, and our second this week. At T-minus 9 minutes and 56 seconds until launch, teams are currently tracking no issues on the pad or on the range, but the team has been watching weather in the recovery area. That being said, everything is currently looking good for today's attempt. If we're unable to launch today, a backup launch opportunity is available on Thursday, June 18th, during a launch window that opens at 2:18 a.m. Eastern. Today's satellites are a part of AST SpaceMobile's next-generation satellites designed to support mobile broadband connectivity. So while the countdown continues, let's hear more from AST SpaceMobile.
AST SpaceMobile's BlueBird satellites are unlike anything in orbit today. They're not just satellites, they're cell towers in space. Designed to connect to today's existing smartphones and deliver 4G and 5G broadband. No updates, no special hardware required. The challenge is smartphones have tiny antennas. To connect them from space, we need something massive. AST SpaceMobile's next-generation BlueBirds are the largest commercial phased arrays ever deployed into low Earth orbit. At 2,400 square feet, these enormous arrays allow each satellite to form hundreds of precise communication beams at once, with peak data rates of nearly 200 megabits per second. Enough for millions of calls, streams, downloads, and texts every day. Recently, we achieved a peak download speed of 98.9 megabits per second using our Block 1 BlueBirds in international waters. These satellites are manufactured with 95% vertical integration across over 500,000 square feet of state-of-the-art facilities across the U.S. and beyond. We have partnered with nearly 60 leading mobile network operators worldwide, including AT&T and Verizon in the U.S., Bell and Telus in Canada, Vodafone in Europe, Rakuten in Japan, and STC Group in the Middle East and Africa. And we have the support of Google and American Tower as strategic partners. AST SpaceMobile is making global cellular broadband possible for the first time. Soon, we will fulfill our mission to connect the unconnected.
The Falcon 9 rocket supporting today's mission is a 2-stage rocket designed for the reliable and safe transportation of satellites, cargo, and people. Starting from the very top of the rocket, we have the payload fairing. The fairing is a protective shell that shields the payload from aerodynamic heating until the vehicle is outside of Earth's atmosphere. The shape of the fairing contributes to Falcon 9's
Engine chill has started.
overall efficiency, helping to reduce drag during flight. Once in space, the two fairing halves separate and fall back to Earth, where they will be retrieved by a recovery vessel to be refurbished and reused on future flights. Both halves of the fairing are flight proven, with one side flying for its 33rd time and the other for its 16th. And if recovery goes to plan, the fairings will be pulled from the ocean and prepped to fly again. Right below the fairing is Falcon 9's second stage, which features a single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine. And below
Stage 1, RP1 load is complete.
And below the second stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage, and inside of that is where the MVAC engine is located. Below that we have the first stage, or booster, which will be fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of liquid oxygen and RP1 rocket-grade kerosene. The first stage makes up the bottom 2/3 of the vehicle and has 9 Merlin M1D engines at the bottom, which generate more than 1.7 million pounds of thrust. The booster supporting today's mission will be making its 29th flight today, having previously launched NASA Crew 5, GPS-3 Space Vehicle 06, Inmarsat I-6F2, CRS-28, Intelsat G37, NG-20, TD-7, and 21 Starlink missions. About 2.5 minutes into flight, the first stage will separate and make its way back to Earth, and today the booster is headed towards our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas. With a little over 5 minutes to go, everything is on track for launch. Now, coming up shortly, the support structure next to the vehicle, known as the strong back or the transporter erector, sometimes shortened to TE.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressing for the start of strongback retract.
That strong back will start to pull away from the rocket. And that's the large truss structure that you see standing next to the rocket. It's hinged at the base and connected to the launch mount beneath the first stage. So first things first, we'll see the clamp arms open up around the second stage, and then the strong back will begin to recline away from the vehicle. And we're just about 10 seconds away
Strongback retract has started.
from starting to see those clamp arms opening around the second stage on our vehicle stack. And then once they're open, the rocket will be fully free at the top. And we can see those clamp arms are now beginning to open up. It takes roughly 15 seconds for them to fully open. And now we can see that those clamp arms are fully open and the rocket is free. And the launch tower's strong back is now moving away from Falcon 9, allowing it to stand freely before liftoff. Now at this point, both stages are nearly fully loaded with about 1 million pounds of propellant. That includes RP1, which is a highly refined kerosene, and liquid oxygen, chilled to under 300 degrees below zero. Propellant is loaded late in the countdown, and that's intentional. Colder propellants are denser, and denser propellants mean more performance out of the same tanks.
Stage 1, LOX load is complete.
And as you just heard over the net, there is confirmation of Stage 1 liquid oxygen loading completion. The second stage will finish up about a minute later. Now, before any of that propellant flows, though, the plumbing and engines are chilled down. That prevents thermal shock and boil-off when the ultra-cold liquid starts moving. You might hear that referred to as engine chill. And propellant loading wraps in 2 steps. So, like we heard earlier, the first stage finishes around T-minus 3 minutes, and then the second stage finishes about a minute later. And in addition to RP1 and liquid oxygen, cryogenic helium is loaded onto Falcon 9. Falcon 9's tanks are pressurized using helium, and that helium is chilled too to remain compatible with the cryogenic plumbing. And during flight, that pressurization helps force propellant into the engines as the tanks empty.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete.
And we heard the call out that liquid oxygen for the second stage is now fully loaded, completing propellant load for the upper stage and prop load overall. Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of RP1 and LOX.
Ground gas closeouts.
Gas closeout has started, meaning that the team is venting and closing out gaseous systems, topping off tanks and sealing vents to maintain pressure. We're now standing by for confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 has entered startup.
So now the autonomous flight computers have taken over the launch countdown, and both stages are pressurizing for launch.
Launch director, go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15 seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff. Go Falcon, go BlueBird. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressures are nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds into flight, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. We're currently throttling down to prepare for max Q, which is the point of maximum aerodynamic stress on the vehicle. Max Q
and telemetry nominal.
Max Q occurs in the lower atmosphere, where there's still enough air to create significant resistance against the rocket. This is when the pressure pushing against the rocket is at its highest point, and it's
Vehicle
a
is
key
supersonic.
and it's a key test of the vehicle's structural integrity. After max Q, the rocket continues to accelerate, but the air becomes thinner, reducing the stress on the vehicle as it climbs through the upper layers of the atmosphere.
Max Q.
And there's the call out for max Q. Merlin engines are back at full power now that we're out of the throttle bucket. And from here on, even though velocity is rapidly increasing, the atmospheric density is decreasing, resulting in less loads on Falcon 9. Now we have several events
Back chill.
coming up in quick succession, starting with MECO, followed by stage separation, and second engine start, or SES1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is where all 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, where the first stage separates from the second stage. Then the MVAC engine on the second stage will light, which is called out as second engine start 1, or SES1. This engine burn, lasting several minutes, will propel the second stage and our payloads to orbit. After that, the fairing will jettison from the second stage, as it's no longer needed to protect the payloads once we're in space. We should be hearing the first of these callouts in just about 10 seconds from now.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC startup.
And we had confirmation of those 3 events that happened back to back: main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1. Coming up next will be fairing separation. Again, we jettison the payload fairing halves now that they're no longer needed in the vacuum of space, and will attempt to retrieve them once they fall back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there we just heard confirmation of fairing separation. They'll make their way back to Earth for recovery. Now the next major milestone coming up is the entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage, which is scheduled to occur at the T+6 minute and 25-second mark. The entry burn is used to slow the first stage as it heads towards our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, located in the Atlantic Ocean. The booster engine graphic on the lower left-hand corner of the screen displays the arrangement of the 9 M1D engines, with the outer ring of 8 and the center 9th engine. And these are held in place on the vehicle by a structure called the octaweb. The entry burn is similar to pumping the brakes to slow down the vehicle as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. And we need to slow down to reduce re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. Then, shortly after entry burn, the booster will initiate the landing burn, which will slow the vehicle down before touching down on our drone ship. We're still more than a minute away from the beginning of the entry burn. So that first stage is not only using the Merlin engines for the re-entry and landing process, it also uses its titanium grid fins and nitrogen gas thrusters for stability and control. While views aren't the greatest right now, from time to time you might spot those white puffs coming from Falcon 9, and those are the cold nitrogen gas bursts, which help with attitude control. So we're still coming up on the entry burn. We should expect that within the next 20 seconds.
Stage 1 FTS is safe.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's the call out for the entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. This burn will last about 25 seconds and again is slowing the vehicle down in preparation for its final burn and landing.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And that concludes the booster's entry burn. And as mentioned earlier, we will be attempting to recover this booster with our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. And now the next milestone, coming up in about a minute, will be the Stage 1 landing burn. You can follow along with the burn via the engine graphic at the bottom left of your screen. And as the burn happens, you'll notice a drastic decrease in the speed and altitude of the vehicle. Coming up shortly, we'll have the start of the landing burn for the first stage.
Stage 1 transonic.
The landing burn is the final burn of the Falcon 9 booster, used to reduce the remaining speed of the vehicle for a gentle and precise landing.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
And as Falcon 9 descends towards the drone ship, keep an eye out for the first stage landing leg deploy just prior to touching down.
Stage 2 FDS is saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
There's the call out for the landing burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. Again, this is the final burn that this booster will execute leading up to landing.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
MVAC shutdown.
Stage 1 landing confirmed.
As you saw and heard, that was a successful
Nominal orbit insertion.
first stage landing of our Falcon 9 booster. As a reminder, this booster flew for its 29th time. And now while the booster has completed its part of the mission, our first of 3 payload deployments is expected at T plus 53 minutes. And before that, the MVAC engine on the second stage will execute a second burn starting at T plus 46 minutes. And we just heard earlier of the call out for the shutdown of the MVAC engine on the second stage, which was the completion of the first of those 2 burns. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back for that next burn in about 35 minutes. Welcome back to our live coverage of the BlueBird 8-10 mission. It has been a great launch and overall mission so far. We had an on-time liftoff at 2:39 a.m. Eastern, and we recovered the first stage for its 29th launch and landing. Now, the MVAC engine on the second stage ignited a couple minutes after liftoff, also known as Second Engine Start 1 or SES-1. And that engine burn lasted about 6 minutes, propelling the second stage and payloads to orbit. Now, coming up shortly, the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will execute a second burn to get the vehicle into the proper injection orbit.
MVAC startup.
And there's confirmation of the second MVAC burn. This burn will
MVAC
last
shutdown.
just 6 seconds. And there was confirmation of MVAC shutdown.
Nominal orbit insertion.
All right, and there was confirmation of good orbit. So our next milestone is the beginning of payload deploy. That is coming up at T plus 53 minutes and 43 seconds. So we'll take another short break and we'll see you back here in about 5 minutes. And we're back. Before the break, the Merlin vacuum engine on Falcon 9's second stage completed its second burn of the mission, SES-2, a quick one lasting just 6 seconds before its scheduled shutdown, SECO-2, all in preparation for payload deployment. Now, there will be 3 satellites deployed today, and the first one is up next. The satellites will be deployed a few minutes apart from each other, so we'll be taking short breaks in between. And we will not have views of the first deploy today, but we do expect to have limited views during the second and third deploys. At this point, we're about a minute away from the first deployment. We're about 10 seconds away from the first payload deploy, and these satellites are part of AST SpaceMobile's next generation constellation. So we should have confirmation of payload deploy when we go over our next ground station, so we'll update you as we get info. But the second satellite deployment is coming up at T plus 59 minutes, so we'll take another short break and we'll see you back here in about 3.5 minutes.
BlueBird, Block 2, BB10, separation confirmed.
Welcome back to SpaceX's live coverage of the BlueBird 8-10 mission. Falcon 9 today is delivering 3 satellites to orbit for our customer, AST SpaceMobile. The first of 3 was deployed during the break, and our second is up next. Now today we are delivering a total of 3 satellites to low Earth orbit, BlueBird 8, 9, and 10. And SpaceX previously launched AST's first 5 commercial satellites, BlueBird 1 through 5, in September of 2024. And we're expecting the next payload deploy in about 15 seconds from now.
BlueBird, Block 2, BB9, separation confirmed.
And here's our first views of the payload adapter. And with confirmation of the second deployment, that leaves us with one final payload deployment to close out today's mission. And that's coming up at T+1 hour and 4 minutes. So we'll take another short break, and we'll see you back here in about 4 minutes. And we are back for the final payload deployment for today's mission, coming up here in just under a minute. And if you're just joining us, we had the successful deployment of the first 2 BlueBird satellites before the break. We're going to be about 30 seconds away from the 3rd and final deployment. And if you're just joining us, this is the live coverage of the BlueBird 8 to 10 mission for AST Space Mobile.
BlueBird Block 2, BB-8, separation confirmed. All payloads successfully confirmed.
And there we have the final BlueBird satellite for today's mission, separating from the 2nd stage. And that'll bring us to the end of our live mission coverage. We would like to thank AST Space Mobile for entrusting us with their satellites today. And we'd also like to thank the FAA and the Eastern Range for their support of today's mission. Be sure to check out spacex.com/launches for the most up-to-date information on upcoming launches, and follow us on SpaceX on X. And we'll see you next time.